Welcome everyone to our Q2 Roadmap webinar. I am so excited to be talking about all the amazing features that will be coming your way in the next couple months, and I'm even more excited that you're here with us today. Go. So a quick look at the agenda. We're going to make it simple and clean today. So we're going to be taking a quick look at all the key Q2 features coming our way, and then we'll be spending a majority of the time actually diving in deeper into everything you see, tying it all together in terms of themes that you'll see throughout the rest of the year with our discussion panel with all the senior leaders. So I'm excited to welcome Sundar, Eric, and Greg, each looking after key features within the JumpCloud platform to dive into everything you see today and get a little bit better understanding of the strategy behind it and what's coming next. A quick disclaimer, because everything in software always goes according to plan, but just in case people, process, or technologies evolve, we will continue to evolve with it. A quick snapshot for those that are recently joining the JumpCloud family. We're proud to support over 150,000 organizations worldwide. And we're proud to call 5,000 of those our customers, spanning 160 countries. For today's roadmap webinar, we're going to be covering a little bit in each different section of the JumpCloud platform. So we'll be starting with identity access management, and then we'll be moving into device management, and then all the data that those are kicking off within our data services team, and then finally wrapping up, making sure you can run an efficient business on top of JumpCloud with our managed service providers and partners. So to start, we'll dive into identity and access management. For each one of these, we also want to provide kind of some thematic themes that you'll see throughout the year, and we're going to kind of continue to dive into it. So these will be a repeat from Q1, and you'll see them throughout the rest of the year, but just again, to provide a little bit more context. So within identity management, we're really focusing on automating that identity lifecycle, making sure that the platform works as hard and as efficiently as you are. And then also extending SSO. So that way, when you start from a single secure logon, you're using those federated protocols to get wherever you need to be. And then finally, governing access for all those identities that you're managing within your JumpCloud organization. So to begin, we'll start with where those identities are coming in within JumpCloud. So we'll be diving into, within Q2, enhancing our cloud directory integrations. So now you can control more attributes and groups that are coming into JumpCloud across Google Workspaces and Microsoft 365. And coming within Q2, you'll be able to manage the creation and edit of those groups within Microsoft 365. Outside of those cloud directories, we're also thinking about identities and where they're coming in from HR systems. And so we're continuing to build out integrations like we have with Bamboo HR to HR systems like Personio and Namely. And more importantly, we'll actually be offering the ability to generically integrate with almost any HRS, right, with REST APIs. So now within those target applications, you can source and bring those identities within the JumpCloud, allowing you to scale securely and efficiently. Once those identities are within JumpCloud, we want to continue to automate that onboarding experience and be able to schedule those users that are coming in. So admins can now have a consolidated list of what a staged user has been assigned to before they have access to it, and then schedule when that user should be activated. Coming later this year, we'll be able to fully automate the onboarding and offboarding with date-based activation and suspension triggers. Then, now that we have those identities, how we're thinking about access. And so I'm proud to announce that we'll be supporting OpenID Connect, as well as even more flexible SAML configurations and even more connectors to our pre-built application catalog. And here's a sampling of some of those applications that will be coming your way. As those users are starting to have access, we also want to think about that group-based access. So we want to have smarter groups. So we want to build the rules to help inform the group membership, giving you more control over the conditions for group membership to allow for even more accurate suggestions when those are coming through. Now that we're kind of moving on from identity, we're thinking about access management. And some of the themes that you'll continue to see across access management this year will be frictionless authentication, making sure that you can access those resources as push MFA across the platform. But when you're doing that, we're also approaching it from a zero trust perspective, so that way you are creating the conditions for that access that's best for your organization. And then finally, making sure that we can have strong certificate-based authentication wherever we can. So I'm excited to announce that we'll be introducing our mobile app for admins, the easiest way to access your JumpCloud admin console in a completely new, thought out, redesigned way, giving you access to everything that you need on the go. In addition to our new JumpCloud admin app, we're continuing to enhance our JumpCloud Protect application. The first thing that we'll do is actually adding in additional layers of security by adding in biometrics. So that way you can now secure those critical resources with additional biometric control for everything. So that way you can continue to ensure you are who you are no matter where you are. As we continue to expand kind of where MFA looks across the JumpCloud platform, the first area that we're going to begin to continue to secure is MFA for LDAP resources. So that way, as you're wiring up network attached resources or anything else, you can have that push MFA authentication for your LDAP. Then additionally, we'll continue to extend that across networking access as well. So we'll have push MFA for our radius servers as well. So when you're configuring your Wi-Fi or VPN, you can now challenge those users when you're getting on the network. So as we wrap up identity access management, we'll now be diving in a little bit deeper into device management and how we're working on those machines every single day. In terms of device management, a couple of themes that you'll be seeing throughout the year is we're continuing to mature our desktop experience, making sure that everything that we're working on in the workhorses is secure and reliable and continues on. And then we'll be continuing to extend into mobile. We've already released iOS and be looking to extend into Android later this year. And then regardless of screen size, we want to make sure that when we're doing that, it's doing it in a fully automated fashion and adding in layers of security along the way. So first, we'll dive into our desktop. And as we're thinking about managing desktop experiences, one of the things we want to continue to dive into is making sure that our commands experience continues to thrive and enhance. One of the first ways that we'll be doing that in our commands 2.0, if you will be extending the timeout. So we'll be moving from 10 minutes to 10 days to give you some time to making sure that you're covering all of those roaming devices, as well as being able to set custom TTL dates for each of those commands. Now, when you're firing off a lot more commands, you'll want to see where they are within the queue. So we'll also be announcing status queue for those commands. So that way you'll know what's waiting to be run, which devices have yet to be assigned a task, and then cancel those commands if they are no longer relevant to those devices. When we're thinking about the desktop experience, we're also usually talking about the Jumpcloud Agent. We want to make sure that that can be deployed in as flexible manner as possible. So coming within Q2, we'll actually be enhancing management policy for Active Directory and Azure Active Directory bound devices as well. Now, for the smaller screens of our lives. One of the things we'll be introducing is our Enterprise Apps or VPP for iOS. So now admins can assign apps from both Apple's App Store on iOS as well as macOS. And this will be initially supported for corporate enrolled devices initially, and admins will have the ability to supply a custom configuration for each one of these applications. Now, onto automation and security of our devices. An up-to-date device is a secure device, and the best way to do that is through OS patching. And so I'm excited to announce that we're actually bringing in Linux into the fold. So now you'll be able to manage Mac, Windows, and Linux, and keeping your fleet of devices up-to-date and secure across everything within your organization. Will this be rolling out with the Ubuntu versions? And when we're keeping those devices up to date, we're sending a lot of those notifications. And so now we want to make sure that you can have some trust from users as they are coming in. So we want to provide some more flexible options for those notifications that are coming into your users. So you'll be able to replace the Jumpcloud logo and update that text so you can let your users know when it's critical or when you can have them a couple days to nudge them along. And now that we're keeping those devices up to date, we want to understand all those events that are happening across the platform. So now as those directory insights, we're going to be bringing those events into that center so that we can view and filter all of those OS updates that are coming in, and you can see them as you see fit. And finally, from the device management side, I'm happy to announce they'll be introducing Remote Assist. With Remote Assist, you'll have a live assist mode to help your end users, where they can enter in a unique session key, and that will allow the end users to share their desktop as well as grant control to the mouse and keyboard. So that way you can help your end users live in real time while helping them. Now, as we wrap up device management, we'll be moving into data services and all of the events that will be kicking off between those. Some of the themes that you'll see across the device services team is making sure that you have frictionless access to all of your data, but within context that makes sense. One of the first ways that we'll be doing this is as you come into the front door of the Jumpcloud admin console is we're allowing to have fully configurable widgets to show alerts on the critical areas that you have. And within each one of those, open up an investigations page to allow you to take action or remediate those. Our initial batch of widgets will include user lockouts, expired passwords, upcoming expired passwords, unencrypted devices, and new users that have been added to Jumpcloud within the past 7 days. I'm also excited to announce that we'll be introducing Asset Directory. So now you can manage all of your assets across your organization and see them all within one view. Within this initial beta release, we're actually starting off with the ability to import assets via CSV and view the list of devices. So now you can add assets, asset attributes, customize those asset attributes, and view a consolidated list of both JumpCloud managed devices as well as unmanaged devices, all within one pane of glass. Now that we have all that information coming through, we want to make sure that we're able to provide reports that meet the context, as well as making sure that we can support the reporting structures that we have. So one of the initial sets of reports that will be coming out from JumpCloud reports is that user to SSO application associations. So now you can see which users have access to which applications for audit and reporting purposes. As a quick follow-on to that and all the other patching and compliance that we see coming out, we also wanted to provide an OS patch compliance report. So a quick, easy report that lets you see which devices are fully encrypted, which have been up to date, and which are within that compliance report. And all of these reports will be available through JumpCloud APIs as well. And then finally, as we're kicking off all of these reports, we want to make sure that we can pull together all that information. And so we're actually going to have a reports queue. So this will allow you to export, store, and download those reports. All of these reports will be available and retained for 7 days. Don't worry, you can always restart it. And this is actually currently in early access mode for our customers. So as we wrap up our data services, we'll now be moving into the managed service providers and our partners, making sure you can run an efficient business on top of JumpCloud. And continuing on that theme, we want to make sure that everything that we're doing for our managed service providers and partners are continuing to integrate across everything within your business. And when we're doing that, providing enhanced visibility across your client base to making sure you can run it as efficiently as possible. So with that, as a continuation of our Q1 theme and a recently released ConnectWise integration, we're continuing on with auto task integration. So now you can sync your JumpCloud billing with your auto task contracts to help reduce that time spent in that reconciling of usage across your customer base. And then finally, we'll be allowing the ability to allocate different JumpCloud licenses across your organizations, allowing your customers to scale and get out of the way, and making sure that they can do so easily and seamlessly. So that was a ton of Q2 features coming your way. And I know I kind of blazed through that on. So what I'm excited to do is actually welcome today's panel. And so today joining me will be Sundar, Eric, and Greg. So please welcome me in having them come on. We'll be discussing a little bit more about all the features that you just saw, as well as the strategy and kind of understanding how all those pieces tie together. And so for those who haven't already, feel free to start sending questions into the chat. And if we can't get them today, we will always follow up via email. And if you have any additional questions outside of this webinar, feel free to reach out to your account manager at accounts@jumpcloud.com. You can reach out to us at the JumpCloud Lounge or on the JumpCloud community. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. We can start diving into some of those questions. And while I do that, I'll start kind of round robin. Eric, Greg, and then Sundar, if you could please introduce yourselves to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely, Chase. Hey, I'm Eric Avigdor. I run product management for identity and access management within JumpCloud.
Hey, and I'm Greg Armanini. I run product management for devices here at JumpCloud.
Hey everyone, Sundar Jayashekhar. I lead the product team here for data services.
Perfect. Thank you all. And thank you so much for your time in joining us today. And so actually one of the first questions that we have, so Eric, to kind of start us off. So within Q2, we're investigating and making onboarding and offboarding quicker and more efficient. Could you tell us a little bit more about how we plan to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're investing a lot in trying to make the onboarding, offboarding process as easy and quick as possible. And we're actually doing a few things. So first, you've seen we're investing a lot in HRIS integrations, and the reason we're doing that is because we really want to allow the admins to prepare the onboarding process before it actually happens. So we're building pre-built integrations with HRIS, with names like Personio and Namely and Bob and Bamboo and a few others. We're also allowing that generic template to allow you to integrate with whichever HR system you have. But point being, we want to really allow you to bring in identities from more resources and plan ahead towards onboarding. So tying into that, we're adding the ability to schedule activation, right? So if 20 users are being added on July 17th, let's schedule that so when July 17th hits, users will be provisioned, onboarded, and things will happen automatically, as it happens. I think I'd want to add maybe one more point, which is the staged users. The fact that now admins can actually see visually the status of these stage users and what they already have access to and what they've been provisioned with. That allows an admin to get a better understanding of what will happen on that day when the activation happens. So all of that should contribute to a much easier and quicker onboarding flow.
Perfect, thank you. The next question I have will kind of hit Greg's side of the house. So for a lot of folks, device security is crucial in an age, but where you only see the device kind of twice, once when you're onboarding folks and once when you're offboarding folks. How are we thinking about keeping devices up to date and secure throughout that life cycle?
Well, there's a lot that we're looking at doing, and it is more and more becoming a continuous evaluation process. One of the first things we're doing, of course, we recently released patch management on the desktop side of the house, and as you called out, in addition to Windows and Mac, we're adding Linux support. You know, having machines up to date on an ongoing basis and having that continuously evaluated is critical. That's you know, a primary vector for cyber attacks. So we plan on doing that and more automations, right? And providing reporting, as you called out, so that admins can feel comfortable about where their fleets are at. On the devices side, so iOS, even Android, you should expect us to see more and more happening where we're, you know, getting the ability for either a CYOD or a corporate-owned device, sorry, or a BYO device to lock those down as well, manage them appropriately. In BYO, it would be more of a container model, evaluating, sampling the device for security, and then COD devices, you can, you know, manage the entire device, of course.
Thank you. All right, so to kind of bring it back around, Sundar, a question for you. So one of the topics we talked about is asset directory. Could you describe a little bit more about what is asset directory and what is it setting out to solve? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Jay. Sorry, I was muted. So think of asset directory as visibility into all assets within your IT ecosystem, right? The way we're defining assets for this service is pretty much everything that an IT admin cares about, right? You know, primarily it's going to be devices, laptops, desktops, what have you, that you've sent to your employees, but it'll also include servers, IT resources. It's going to include all the software components that are installed in any of these hardware devices, right? All of this constitutes assets for us. And one of the biggest asks that we've had from customers is, hey, give me a single list, single source of truth for me to view all of these assets in one place, right? It's such a basic thing for compliance and security, right? You can only protect, you can only secure, you can only manage, you can only be compliant on things that you know. Things that you don't know, you just don't have any clue what's happening with them. So that's the biggest thing with asset directory, right? Is providing you the single pane of glass for both managed and unmanaged assets, right? You might have 100 devices, out of which maybe 90 are managed by JumpCloud device management. Maybe there are 10 for whatever reason that are not managed. You still want to view them to be able to do asset lifecycle management and other things. That's the primary goal of asset directory. Obviously, with anything, we're going to crawl, walk, and run. We're going to give you an initial device-focused asset directory initially, and then we'll move on to all the other assets that I talked about.
Perfect, amazing. And as we're thinking about bringing all those elements together, Eric, another question I have for you is zero trust is often a target for organizations as kind of something that they are looking to achieve. I wanted to see if you could share a little bit more about everything that we're looking to help those customers on their journey to zero trust.
Yeah, I love that question. So we get asked a lot about zero trust, and I think, you know, obviously there's wrong perception in the market that zero trust is a binary state, either I am or I'm not, right? And we all know that zero trust is a journey. So just, you know, a few things we're adding that can help move along that journey. One is our Mfa Everywhere goal, right? We're adding the ability to multi-factor users into more environments, so Radius and LDAP. So now you can secure in a more granular way using multi-factor different endpoints, single sign-on endpoints, web applications, LDAP, Radius. Another aspect is we're making authentication simpler and more secure by adding biometrics, right? So if some resources require one level of security where other resources require a higher level, you could authenticate with push and add biometrics or PIN to complement that and make it more secure. I think another aspect of Zero Trust, which we're investing a lot in, is really the governance aspect in the kind of trying to add more capabilities that tie into least privilege. And what I mean by that is, for example, the ability to be more granular in how we set up group suggestions, right? We want the ability for JumpCloud to actually suggest groups in a better way, because everything that has to do with allowing users very specific access to very specific environments ties into which groups they are set up in, right? Are they part of the engineering group? Are they part of the Denver office group? Are they part of the people's manager group? And based on that, what do they have access to? And maybe I think I'd add just schedule activation and suspension. The ability to schedule suspension also follows least privilege, because we automatically then remove access from things when the time is right. So just a few ideas on what we're adding for Zero Trust.
That's great. And then as we think about that security, identity is one section, but then we typically think about kind of the device as the gateway to getting into all those. So we're introducing a lot of tooling and policies. And so Greg, I wanted to see if you could walk us through a little bit more about how device management will be evolving through this quarter.
Well, through this quarter, as you know, there's a larger 2022 focus in three areas that you covered. So desktop, mobility, and then automation. So this quarter, what you should expect is on the desktop side primarily that we're going to be going deeper on management policies. So continuing to build out the depth so that you ultimately have both the essential policies that we have today in addition to those advanced policies you'll need on Mac, Windows, and Linux. So example, adding more security policies on the Linux side, continuing to keep Linux distros up to date, and adding more support so that you have a larger footprint to count on. Mobility will be primarily, extending the policy set, to more device configurations on the iOS side. Of course, being able to lock down and manage VPP apps is a big deal too. So it's part of a larger journey that really will lead ultimately to, I'll say, presets where you can have sets of baseline policies that all come together, and you have a series of easy buttons to get your devices into compliance to a specific baseline that you want to set.
And then I guess one question that actually just came in through. So Sundar, for the release of kind of user device reports, and as we're thinking about reports in general, I wanted to see if you could walk us through a little bit more about kind of where we are, kind of starting out, and then what we can expect through the rest of the year.
Yeah, sure. Report requests have been one of the most popular requests for data products, right? For data services. So we started the journey with users to devices reports in all associations of users to the devices that they're assigned to. That's in EA right now. So the goal in Q2 is to go GA with that. Throughout the year, our plan is to launch maybe 2 or 3 additional reports every quarter. We have a huge backlog that customers have asked for. We're just going to, check through that list and provide as many reports as possible. For example, in Q2, we talked about it. Chase, you did presented that we're going to have users to ESTA application reports as well as OSP compliance device reports as well. So we're working with Greg Armanini's team to get those reports out as well, so that OS patching along with reports can be better together. And we'll chug along and then release 2 to 3 reports every quarter. But we are also trying to make the existing reports more powerful. Like, for example, we'll be adding filtering capabilities. Today, it's a dump of all users to devices reports. Maybe you just want the report to run for Chase, Eric, and Greg, for example. So filtering capabilities is something that we are adding. We're also adding scheduling. maybe you want to run this once a quarter, every day, every other day, automatically, and maybe send a email link to download the report is something we're adding. So that's the reporting journey. If you fast forward maybe 12 or 18 months, we want to make that even more powerful and maybe even launch. Again, this is very futuristic. Maybe I shouldn't even talk about it, but I'll just mention it in maybe 10 or 20 seconds. Is we want to build something like a query builder where we'll give you the raw data and you can query it the way you want it. We're not very sure on the use cases customers would want us to use the query builder for beyond reports. They already get the data through reports, but what's beyond that, right? Once we glean more interest on that custom query ability, then we'll be launching something along those lines so that you have more granular access to your own data.
Thank you for that. All right, so everyone in the audience is sending through a slew of questions, and I'm going to do my best to kind of begin to filter through even more of them. And so one of the questions that came through is plans to include other Linux distros on patch management, policy management, and other features that are currently supported with Ubuntu. Greg, I'm not sure if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, as a rule of thumb, right, we want to cover all of the top, we'll say 10 distros. You should expect us primarily to be current on, Ubuntu, that, we're always following, of course, LTS. We expect most customers to go down that path. For those who don't, we will maintain a regular cadence of the top, the top updates, the O2 release, the O4 release, et cetera, et cetera. What I'll say in general, because it is a fragmented space, we're always looking for customers to vote up the OSs that they feel like we're not supporting adequately, or distros, I should say. So use the community tooling to say, hey, what about CentOS, right? Where is that going? We have our hunches. We're adding things that we feel are in the right priority. But if we're missing something, please reach out in the tooling you have in the admin console to suggest features, or in the Jumpcloud Lounge, and then we'll take a look at that. The one thing I always say to this question is, there's a big commitment from our side to sustain development on Linux, both desktop as well as server. I feel like we're making good progress, but if there's specific things from a distro perspective, let us know. On the policy side, our goal is to, as I said earlier, to continue to add security policies, security-centric policies on the Linux devices, ultimately get to more of a baseline guideline, right? So that you could have, hey, I want to work towards a CIS benchmark or something like that. So that's the direction we're thinking, and that you should expect us to go down over the long.
All right, so the next question is diving a little bit deeper into asset directory. I think there's a lot of hunger and kind of I see multiple questions kind of understanding, truly what are we thinking in terms of scope for that? So perhaps Sundar, maybe go a little bit deeper. So questions, can we add monitors? Anything else with a SKU attached to it? Where are we looking to take this? I'd say a little bit more detail on the types of assets that we want to have introduced into the Jumpcloud platform.
Yeah, happy to. A little bit of background on the asset directory, right? So every year Jumpcloud runs an annual marketing survey of what are customers really asking for. And asset directory was one of the top requests through that survey. And that's when we got started on this journey. And we had a goldmine of a list of customers that were interested in it through the survey. So we reached out to them. So it was easy to engage the customers because we knew exactly who had asked for it. So we really wanted to understand what is that they want, right? And when we got deeper into it, what we understood is all that they need is a single pane of glass for all assets, right? The next question is, actually, Chase, before, what was the specific question that you asked? Sorry.
Just a little bit deeper into, I'd say there's a lot, what are all the things that we could put within Jumpcloud? So everything that might be touching an organization from monitors, to keyboards, to badge access, anything else.
So I was forgetting the monitor part. So I don't want customers to gravitate on the monitors and things like that. We still want to focus on the devices, software, servers, and IT resources, right? The reason monitor comes into the picture when we engage the customers, that's where I was going with the story, is they say, look, if we send somebody a $5,000 monitor, I don't know if there are $5,000 monitors, we want to be able to track them, right? But, I mean, beyond just tracking that particular asset, really, you can't offer anything beyond that. But the focus should really be on devices and servers and all the other assets that JumpCloud manages, right, through identity and access. We're going to throw in managing any other resource. If you want to monitor routers, wireless access points, you are welcome to do so. We allow that ability, right? That's where the monitor probably came into the picture, but it's a distant tertiary benefit of the service. So that brings up the point that you can actually tag any custom asset that you want to track, things that are not even concerning JumpCloud. So we give you the ability to do that. What we heard from some of the smaller customers is really, what our single source of truth today is spreadsheets, right? Please get us out of the spreadsheet. We will make that extremely easy for you to do, right? We allow in the very first beta release, we allowing you to import CSV files, and we'll just slurp it up and we'll show all the assets within the asset vector. But my point there being, we focused on devices, software, SSO applications, everything JumpCloud manages as assets, less on monitors and keyboards.
Fair enough. All right, so the next series of questions, I'm going to do my best to kind of group them together, is kind of thinking about access through MFA and what that looks like. So one of the questions come through is, are we looking at adaptive MFA as that comes in?
So yes, we're still trying to define what level of adaptive authentication we would want to add into the JumpCloud platform. I'd say we're not there yet with the defined roadmap for the near term, but that is definitely something we're trying to build in, both for zero trust capabilities as well as beefing up our conditional access capabilities to allow more adaptive options.
Okay, perfect.
That, by the way, Chase, would be something I'd be very interested hearing from customers about. What is the level of adaptive authentication they'd actually be looking to adopt?
Perfect. Yes, and so feel free if you want to reach out, have questions. We'd love to have those conversations with you on any and all features that we've been discussing here on the roadmap. One of the next pieces coming through is just real quickly on iOS, Greg. So hey, we see that it talks to phones, but what about iPads and beyond?
That's a good question. We do tend to use iOS as the canonical reference for Apple Mobility. The reality is that, yeah, so you can, do iOS, iPads, ultimately, tvOS, any Apple device can work with JumpCloud. So it is the notion of, when you think about Apple full stack, what you should expect is that we'll support both corporate enrollment modes plus container, which is user enrollment, right? That's where we're at today. Over time, you should expect to see supervised use cases everywhere. So it's going to be all inclusive. The expectation is we are a full stack mobility management vendor.
Okay. And one of the questions, again, kind of grouping a few of them here, is thinking about kind of that entry experience for the admin portal, and specifically diving into some of the widgets as well as the home screen customization. So Sundar, maybe we can walk through a little bit more about kind of where we want to continue to evolve those widgets as you start to see more customization and where that might be heading from the home screen.
Yeah, sure. So the widgets that we're talking about is the homepage widgets. When anybody logs into the IT admin portal, the page that you land to is what we are talking about as the homepage widgets. The more customers we talk to, the more they ask for a place that they can go to, for example, with the morning cup of coffee. Which are the biggest fires I'm fighting? What are the password lockouts? What password expirations are coming up, which devices are required to be managed, and so on and so forth, which devices are non-compliant. So the goal of this landing page is going to be a landing page that you can customize, if you fast forward 12 months or 18 months from today, I'm going to paint that picture and walk backwards, right? 18 months from now, our goal is to have maybe 30 or 20 or 30 different widgets that you can turn on or off and customize what you want to see in your homepage, right? For some people, password lockouts is a big deal. For some of them, it's not. So we want to give that configurability. So once we have the customization, the next steps would be, is there any of these dashboards or numbers or dashboards that you want to get alerted on, right? For example, if your core aim in life is to keep password lockouts to 0 at any point of time, anytime it becomes a non-zero number, you want to be alerted on it so that you can go, recycle the password, help with the lockout, so on and so forth. So a dashboard that keeps abreast of your environment and allows and notifies you in a timely manner is the goal of that landing page.
Okay.
We're going to start with 5 or 6 and then expand it slowly and add more and more widgets based on what customers are asking. So Chase, one other thing I wanted to mention with Asset Directory, actually, you know what, it's fine. I'll come back to that. We can move on to the next question.
Fair enough. All right. And so one of the next questions that we have is actually kind of thinking about mention a little bit more of the certificate-based authentication. So one of the questions that came through is how are we thinking about certificate-based authentication for Wi-Fi networking?
I forgot to get off mute. So, I think the companies are split between those that authenticate via radius just through simple radius authentication, and those companies that that utilize certificates for that purpose. We have a significant customer base, and we're hearing that that from prospects as well, that the ability to authenticate through radius using certificates is something that is of interest in many use cases because it is more secure. You could manage expiration dates on certificates and the entire life cycle. So we're actually building into the JumpCloud platform the ability to authenticate via radius using certificate-based authentication. We have plans to expand beyond that. So there are certificate management capabilities that we will be baking in, and you will hear about those most probably in our Q3 roadmap webinar, hopefully a few months from now.
Perfect. All right, and so I'd say some of the next questions we have, I'm thinking a little bit more about applications. An interesting question came through. Are we thinking about having kind of our own application repository for, as those applications are coming down, we want to push them into those devices?
Take it, that's for me. So yeah, the notion of a custom repo is something that we're definitely aware of. We know that to some degree, it's a challenge if you have a custom application, for instance, a custom package, and you want to, host that outside of an app store on your own, that you would have to use a third-party platform to do that, whether it be a desktop OS or honestly even mobile. So we will look at that. To Eric's point, it's probably something we'll be talking more about in H2. We do want to make it a lot simpler for any OS to host a custom application. And just how we do that is TBD, but this is definitely something that we're aware of. You may have noticed we recently made some tweaks on the macOS side, upping the 250 gig limit to 500. We're slowly increasing that as we go. As we mature the platform, we're looking to improve the story around Chocolatey in general, and how that works. So we recognize that. I mean, I think again, we're looking for feedback always on what's needed, but you should expect to hear more from us in H2.
Okay, perfect. And then I'm actually going to keep you on the hook real quick because the next question is thinking about all the enhancements that we have coming through commands. And one of the questions is, how are we thinking about making commands run once upon initial enrollment within JumpCloud? So instead of kind of using repeating scripts to kind of get those going, maybe talk us through like what would be the vision for that startup enrollment from JumpCloud side?
Yeah. So we do want to get to that point. So we broke down the framework for commands in general. I'm starting at 10,000 feet here. We said, well, what needs to come in commands 2.0? The most obvious, of course, was time to live. So from 10 minutes to 10 days is the new default, and you can, of course, as an admin, set the appropriate time to live on each command. So that's we figured was job one. Job two is exposing you to the progress in the command queue so that you can manage that. Job three would be triggers. So that's essentially the events you're asking for. So on enrollment, trigger equals run these commands. So we are looking at that. I will say that it's probably an H2 item. It's a fast follow to the things we're looking at. Ultimately, so I want to now sprinkle a little bit of directional feedback here too. A lot of this is going to go down the path of what we think of as smart groups, where you can create arbitrarily objects of devices, maybe users even, and assign a meaning and actions. So expect to see us do more there as well over time. That's sort of the North Star for the platform. It'll ultimately be a platform of automations and orchestration where you can, do n number of triggers for different events, not just enrollment.
Perfect. So I think, there are a lot of questions asking about very specific timing, because we want to make sure that we get it into the hands today. But I think along those lines, quick question in terms of how we're thinking about releasing these to our customers, right? And so we mentioned really quickly within the initial part, kind of going through beta and walking through that. Perhaps Sundar, maybe you could walk us through kind of what we think about when we are using that type of terminology, making sure that we can be as specific as we can, but keeping in mind the disclaimer, right, of all things, but making sure that we can deliver that software to our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we're changing slightly within JumpCloud is to put the product into the hands of the customers sooner than later, right? This is a model that has worked really, really well for a lot of the companies. So we are introducing, again, this is no new industry term, it's a beta, right? We never had a concept of beta within JumpCloud. What we did was we did early access, and that was really an internal beta for us. So we kind of standardizing the terminologies. So for especially large services, multi-quarter services like Asset Directory, expect a beta, maybe a beta 1, beta 2 before we go to early access and then general availability. Early access, again, the definition is going to change slightly, and keep us honest on this. We want early access to be just as featureful as the GA, right? The goal is between EA and GA, the only thing we'll be doing is tightening the bolts on performance, scale, availability, and all that. But so EA, expect EA to be a full feature of that product, and then GA soon after. But before we go GA, we'll have one beta or multiple betas to put a smaller version of the product into your hands, iterate, talk to you, see if you like it, what else can we do, so on and so forth. So Asset Directory is a very good example that we'll be doing betas before we get to EA and GA. Was that the question, Chase? I don't know.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and actually a good reminder to our audience and customers that are listening, if you are interested in any and all of these features, please reach out, and we'd love to chat with you, dive in a little bit further into your use cases, and making sure that we are solving those problems for you. Next question that I have kind of coming into is very exciting around a remote access application, kind of how we are thinking about that. And the question dives a little bit more into, perhaps Greg, you can walk through a little bit more of the flow, right? And so how is that session initialized? And then what can end users expect, as well as the admins kind of hopping into that type of situation?
Sure. So, initially, right, so the remote management space is really large, and we know a lot of our customers, MSPs, et cetera, are counting on various RMM tools to get their jobs done each day. Remote first work, right, is a bear when you can no longer go to the desktop support team in person. So we know there's a lot of expectations and asks out there for what we could and should do, but in terms of the use case, it's going to focus initially on a very narrow slice. It's what we call a live assist mode. So for those who are less aware, you can do both live and silent or unattended support typically when you manage a machine. We're slowly walking down the path of I'll say, bookending the strategy, meaning we manage the device, we now can patch the device, and then at the other end, to handle every use case, we're looking at the live assist use case. And the way that generally would work is, imagine you have an end user that needs help. So that could come through whatever support tooling you have. You get a ticket as an IT support admin. You go into the JumpCloud console. You look at the device in question, and perhaps you see a link to start a remote assist or a live assist session. You would click on that link. It would open up a new window because the way we're designing this from a security principles perspective and ease of use is as a standalone service that integrates into JumpCloud. And what you would generally see is that IT admin is the ability to generate what we would call a session key. Each session for security is going to be unique so that you can't reuse sessions, so that you know, there's no issues there with you know, cyber attacks, etc. Then what would happen is the IT admin would, through the support system, through chat, through a phone call, give them the session key to input. They would tell them on their Windows machine, that's the initial use case, to open up the Live Assist app. I will point out it'll be separate from the Jumpcloud agent. That may not be long-term, but short-term we want it independent in case it's the agent that's having issues. It's not dependent on it. User will open up that app. They don't have to be a local admin to install or run this app. It'll run at the user level, so a standard user can take advantage of this. They would open up the app, they would input their session key. That would establish the connectivity between the admin and the end user. And then from there, the desktop would be broadcast. The end user would give permission to the admin. So this is all opt-in intrinsically. There will be other flavors of the use case over time, but based on what I've described, right, it's a very simple but powerful use case. No, there's no dependency on a third-party viewer app. So we're looking, you know, to do a fully modern approach here that is really easy for you to use.
Perfect. All right, one quick follow-on question that just came through. And thinking about remote access, will we be providing support for multiple admins to join access to the same session? So perhaps if all hands on deck, we need to swarm.
Swarming. So we are designing the platforms so that's possible. So imagine the use case of a session key being shared with multiple people, you know, within the team. Technically possible. Not necessarily something we want to focus on initially. We don't want to preclude it though. So again, we want feedback about use cases. So for any customer out there or MSP, if you have needs, talk to your JumpCloud counterparts, let them know what you need. You can go into the admin console and you could fire off a request. We're listening, and you know, we want to know more about when, where, and why you would need that.
Perfect, thank you. Next question for Eric. So when we're thinking about MFA, expanding the use kind of MFA everywhere across JumpCloud, talk a little bit, like, do we have plans for SMS, and this kind of comes up every now and then, or hardware tokens, TOTP? Maybe describe a little bit more about our approach and our strategy there.
Yeah, so hardware tokens for TOTP, that definitely is an option, again, depending on which vendor and how they can integrate. But SMS to me is a bigger debate, right? So SMS, we all know, NIST has been telling us for a while, is very insecure. We currently don't plan to add SMS capabilities into the platform. We think it's not a great idea, and we wouldn't be one to put ourselves in a situation where we need to share the responsibility of breach credentials because of SMS. We may be looking that into the future, but currently it's not something we have on the plans. We're focusing more on things that can significantly increase the security stance while still being convenient and easy. We know that if security is not convenient and easy, then workarounds are found, and that represents a much bigger risk. So yeah.
Perfect. One question came through is how are we thinking of, and are we thinking of essentially backups? So as more JumpCloud assets come into the platform across this, so identities, now even devices, would that be something that we want to look at in terms of bringing into the fold of the platform?
That's a pretty broad question, Chase. Could you clarify? Do you want backup of endpoints? Do you want backup of TOTPs? Like what kind of backups?
Yeah, backups of endpoints, I think, is the initial.
So I guess I'll answer this from the RMM context previously. I do know that is a job to be done. That's not necessarily something that we're looking to at this point in time. Like dealing with end user data on a device to make sure it's secure would not be a primary job to be done from our perspective. Now, I will say from a vision perspective, for a device, let's say, set of configurations to be portable. So let's fast forward to the future. You have an iOS device, you want a new one. You want to add the new device and you want all your VPP apps to automatically show up on the new device. That I think is fair game. But really going after, a device backup and restore from a desktop RMM perspective, not at this time. But again, just like the SMS comment, please give us feedback why you have to have that and how it changes your life, so that we can, consider it for the roadmap. But in general, a little out of our wheelhouse right now.
Fair enough. Thank you for that. Another question coming through in terms of now that we are adding Linux into the fold, right? In terms of coming back to patching, so we have Mac, Windows, and Linux. That's great from an OS perspective. Now, kind of, what does the future kind of hold from either third-party kind of applications, or kind of where will patching go from a strategic standpoint?
Oh, good question. So the way to think about the evolution of patch, it starts with OS, right? So cover the desktops. Then we'll get into the top apps. So making sure that browsers, the top 10 enterprise apps, or top N number of enterprise apps is covered in patching. We'll be looking at that next. So you'll hear more about that in upcoming webinars. We definitely acknowledge that. Back to the point about custom repos, we understand they're all sort of intrinsically linked. So we're looking more broadly at that story. And then ultimately, right, the third phase I've already sort of hinted at, which is, baselining. We want to have, NIST CIS style benchmarks that look at combining which apps, which configurations, what commands, policies that stitch it all together. So that's sort of the vision of what I'll say is patching compliance. But we'll of course have to toe in the water for some of these things. So I'll try to give a real example. A lot of customers say, I need browsers to be up to date. Well, the reality is Google does an okay job today nagging end users about Chrome updates. We'll look to see what we can do that helps. Many of you know in patch we just released notifications on macOS. Maybe we'll leverage those as a way to sort of force the update of Chrome if there's an urgent need. So we can look at those kind of easier levers over time, but we recognize there's a bigger story here too.
Perfect. Yes, I'm seeing some comments come through. Many applications are cursed with those updates.
Yeah, it's while you're looking for other questions you want to tackle, we know it's a tough game of balancing end user experience with keeping devices up to date. We did provide the notification knowing that it is in the user's face. It's not the best experience. So, we're also keeping in mind that we have to be very judicious about that and not to abuse it. So I'll pause there.
Appreciate that. So the next couple questions is more about kind of logging in on a day-to-day basis and making sure that we can bring in all that information in a little bit more context. So the first question is, when our customers are interacting with our support teams, implementation teams, and other areas, do we have plans to kind of bring that communication into the Jumpcloud portal itself?
So like live chatbot inside the portal?
I'd say even further, yeah, kind of understanding that threading, kind of making and pulling, so making sure that we have that communication within context.
Oh boy, who wants to take that one?
A little bit broader across the team.
So I think we're continuously looking at how we can get closer to our customers and bring information and feedback quicker, right? So that could be through chatbots or many other ways. So that's a continuous question we ask ourselves. I'm not sure I have a very specific answer for that, but yeah, I mean, absolutely.
So, yeah,
it would be, yeah. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, no, I think it's Chase. Do you want to boil it down? Because I think it's a super broad question, and we don't want the person on the other side pulling their hair out. But we will look to provide more access to our support teams direct to the admins over time. But I want to make sure we understand the question. I'm not sure we do yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Perhaps the person could resubmit it just a little bit more. But I think the goal in the context is, can we have more communication structures all landing within the JumpCloud homepage instead of going off to if there's other area sources?
Mm-hmm.
And so for that example too, it'd be a great opportunity to reach out to our team here. We'd love to work with you, especially set up a UI UX interview. That would be great to kind of walk through how you're experiencing kind of walking through those types of use cases on a day-to-day basis.
I suggest you should absolutely reach out to the person who asked that question to kind of, to Greg's point, understand what that really means. But we do have a feedback loop within the portal where people can submit feature requests or what else they want. I think internally, like, Chase, we've improved that process of, not only go through those requests, but also try and get back to the customers in a timely manner. I mean, it's not a product, it's something that we've internalized and taken seriously, and we should be doing a much better job reaching back to the customers, and they should see that effect very soon.
And I think, Sundar, one point I'd like to add, because just to do justice with this question, because I think it's extremely important. I think there's, a point that customers should be aware of, that we take very, very seriously customer feedback. I can, just share that emails that are sent or, communications from within the platform to the CEO are actually read by the CEO every single day and responded by the CEO, right? This is not a bot or someone else responding. Right, Raj answers every single email. On the flip side of that, every feature request that comes in through the portal is actually, we all within the company, product managers and support, we all have visibility into that through Slack. I read tens of those every day, right? So we really very much take seriously every piece of feedback we receive. So keep them coming.
No, absolutely, and I think to add additional details, all of the product leads here, we track support tickets and we dive into the support ticket to understand what's the nature of the support ticket. Is it something related to operations of scale or performance, or is it a feature request? So obviously we are mindful of all that and expect to be more responsive to the customers here on.
Perfect. Thank you so much for answering that. And again, there's a lot of questions coming through. So I think with 2 minutes left, we'll probably have time for just one more. And I already see a huge queue of them that we will be responding to right after this webinar. So if you have anything top of mind, anything else that you're curious about, please send it in through the chat so we can make sure we can get those answered. And I think the last question that we'll have actually kind of come back a little bit more into Eric's realm is, now that we're thinking about OpenID, Connect support and all of those elements, what will that look like for our customers, right? And so what does that element of support look like going from where we are today and then implementing that?
Okay, so I think that follows the theme of us trying to secure more endpoints, right? So both to allow easy access to more endpoints, but also to secure more endpoints. So we're adding OpenID Connect to IDC with OIDC flows, so our SSO capabilities can expand beyond SAML. So now any application that supports OIDC will be supported. That is coming within Q2. OIDC flows tend to be both easier and more user-friendly compared to SAML, so expect that. But yeah, we're really trying to expand both on our generic integration capabilities and on the packaged versions of those to just allow you to access easily and secure more environments. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, and I think with that, we're closing out with time. And so I just want to offer any last quick comments, thoughts, opinions, anything else that we have from our panel today before we let our audience go.
No, I think in general, I would just, reaffirm we appreciate the engagement and the opportunity to be speaking to you today. Everything the guys just said about giving us feedback is spot on. If you're not hearing what you like, if you're not seeing what you need, just let us know. We do take it all very seriously. We want to make sure that you guys and gals are having a much easier go of it and that we're solving problems for you. So I'll just say that as my parting thought.
And I think if I had to kind of maybe one thought, I would urge our customers to try to explore the power of using different parts of the platform versus a single piece. I'll just give you an example, right? We're adding the ability to expand into more single sign-on environments, while you've just heard from Sundar about his team focusing a lot on bringing those in reports, right? So the ability both to expand to cover more areas and to have visibility into those reinforces each other and gives us much more power as IT admins, right? So hope we can bring more value in combining different pieces of the platform.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Greg and Eric. I think they covered it all. We take customer feedback seriously. A vast majority of our roadmap is dictated by what customers need, right? We don't focus on what the competition is doing for the most part. We just listen to what the customers want and solve the pain points. That's the way we work here. So, which really means the engagement with customers is extremely important. So keep us engaged, make noise, and we will deliver.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for your time, and thank you everyone in the audience for coming here and listening to all the amazing features that we'll be delivering over the next couple months. And again, the theme, keep the communication up with us. Feel free to reach out anytime. And I wish you all have a great rest of your day. Looking forward to starting April soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Please subscribe and check out more content from us.